Today we're here with my friend Alyssa Gerun. She is this incredible woman who has these young kids. She also has a social media presence. And actually, this is something I thought about this morning. I wanted to say the reason why people love you is you're so open and you're hilarious, but you're really, really open. In fact, the first conversation we had was very, very open within 4 minutes.
Yeah, very, very open.
We'll spare you the details.
Yeah.
But within, like 2 seconds of knowing you, I was like, I love this girl. She's so fun and just open. But you're that way with all of your followers too. Like you just are so open. But there's one story that apparently you haven't shared, right?
Yeah, I haven't really taken this out. I kind of mentioned it when it happened a few years ago, but I have never told the story publicly. And it's kind of one that's shaped my whole life.
Wow. When I sent you a text and I said, what is something that has been life-changing to you and something that has really shaped who you are? You sent me this voice text and I was like, wow. So do you mind explaining what happened and the circumstances leading up to it?
Yeah, so it might be a little long-winded, so feel free to cut me off. I kind of have to give all the details leading up to it to kind of put in your mind the imagery of where we are. My parents, so this was back in 2019. My parents were presiding over a mission down at the very south part of Mexico. They had been there. Sorry, I'm probably going to be emotional the whole time.
No, you're fine.
But I'll try to keep my composure. They probably had been down there for about a year and a half. They hadn't met either of my daughters. So they had left right before I had one of my daughters. And then while they were gone, I had another one because they're only 12 months apart.
Oh, wow.
So we decided to go down and visit them. And like meet my parents and hang out with them while they were down there on their mission, which was awesome. We got down there, we had been down there for a while, and one of the days, it was one of their free days that they had, we decided we were going to hop in the car and drive about 3.5 hours to go see these waterfalls, these beautiful waterfalls, which they were kind of just like rapids in the water that my parents were like, we can swim there, we can hang out with the kids, and it's beautiful. It's going to be like a long drive. We'll go see it and then we'll drive back. And my husband and I were like, yeah, when are we ever going to be here? It's kind of like on the very border. I think it like borders, I might even say this wrong, but like Honduras, like we're in the mountains, and they're like, you're going to have to turn your phones off because if it switches into the other country, you're going to get like, on your phones.
Fees. Yeah,
fees. So like we're driving in the middle of nowhere. So we're like, okay, and right now, and at this point I had a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then a 1-year-old.
Oh.
Or 6-month-old. So I had they were all very,
Babies.
very little kids. And we packed in the car. And
Swimming isn't even fun at that point.
No.
Because you're just survival mode.
Like, we were just like, we're going to go. When are we ever going to like drive through the mountains?
I'm already just impressed that
Right?
you traveled international with those 4 babies, but go on.
Yeah, but we're going to go. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to travel. We're going to stop along the way, and we're going to have a good time with my parents. It was a blast. There were a couple things that stopped us, which at first, like driving, I'm like, let's just get there. But everything that happened from the very beginning of the day had to happen exactly how it happened for things to line up in the end. So let me say that again.
Yeah.
Every single thing, every stop along the way had to happen perfectly for every single thing to end up how it did. So just remember that. We, like right before we left, like even my son had a cut that looked weird, and I had to call a doctor in Utah for him to look at this cut, and it took a second. We got the pass that it was fine, got on the road, left. As we're driving, we made like little stops at like little tiendas, little stores that had like amber stones, and we went and looked at all this amber jewelry, and then we would keep driving. As we're driving, the little pueblos, the little group of people, in these mountains are getting like smaller and smaller. There's people that are walking up the street that have no shoes on, that are carrying like firewood on their heads. Like we're in
remote,
very, very, like these people have their own dialects. Like,
wow.
They don't even speak Spanish. They speak their own dialects in their own community.
Yeah, it's tribal almost.
Yes, we are in the mountains.
Wow.
Okay. And where we were staying wasn't even like a big city either. It was like, it's called San Cristobal, and it's a little bit, it's a bigger city, but it's not like Tuxtla Gutierrez, where my parents' home was.
Yeah.
We're a few hours from there, and now we're driving a few hours even farther. And we're stopping along the way. We're having a good time. We stop, we take pictures at one place. My husband goes to act like he's falling down the mountain, really falls down the mountain. It was like, we're all laughing, whatever. Get back in the car. And the whole time I'm thinking like, man, we're having a good time. Like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
We're with my parents. We're with the kids and just enjoying each other.
And you hadn't seen your parents in a year and a half at this point?
Yeah, I hadn't seen my parents in a year and a half. They hadn't really been around my kids. My husband was in grad school, so he had graduated nursing school, was a critical care nurse, so ICU nurse for a few years, worked as like a house supervisor over a hospital here in Utah County. He was very educated in health. So that's also a key point. Yeah. And then we were in grad school for anesthesia. So he's he's been in the healthcare system for a while. And we had a break for grad school. So that's why we were there, because we had a little break to go down. Anyways, we pull up to the spot. We're finally at the spot. And we get to the parking lot, and it's kind of like a national park. I guess you could call it national park, but like there's nothing there. There's people that are kind of working the area, maybe 2 people. And there's like one other car in the parking lot. And then we got out, obviously, and we're like, let's go swim. We've been driving for hours. Yeah. Let's go swim. There was like one swimming area that was probably about half a mile away and another one half a mile down. We decided to go to the closest one. We pack all the kids out and we're ready to swim. It was awesome. Beautiful. Water was clear. There was a little bit of waterfalls that went into this like kind of calm area, and then a little bit of waterfalls. When I say waterfalls, like think of like a 6 to 10 foot drop. So just like rapids.
Not huge. No. Yeah.
We're swimming with our kids. My kids are swimming. We were very comfortable. We felt very safe. My kids are standing at the ledge. We felt very safe. My little kids are swimming. There was another family that was there that also had little kids. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever feel fearful, like we were in danger or any of that. We had been swimming for probably about 15 to 20 minutes when my husband and my father decided to go down down to the next little area to jump off like the shore. Like you would normally do it like Lake Powell or anywhere, right? Yeah. Again, we never felt like we were in danger, so they're just like jumping off the rocks and just having a good time. The one that was right closest to us, at one point my husband was like, should I jump in with Allie, who was like 1 at the time, 2 or 1 at the time, and I was like, no, probably shouldn't jump in with our 2-year-old from the water, but you can, or go down there. So my husband walked down to the bottom, and my dad's like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna jump off right here. And I was like, okay, let me film it. This is awesome. We're just having a good time, right? And I grabbed my baby and I gave her to my mom. And then I grabbed my other baby, who was like 2 or 1, to my mom to hold. And then my boys were kind of standing over there. And I'm filming my dad, and we're like all really excited. And my husband's down at the bottom. And I pulled open my phone. And I'm sitting there filming him, and he's like, yeah, and he jumps in. And I'm filming, and I looked back at my mom, and I said, he's not coming up. And my mom said, what? Oh. And I looked back, and I screamed, he's not coming up. You always wonder how you're going to react in these situations, right?
And you filmed this?
And I'm filming it.
Oh.
And I stopped. I screamed, he's not coming up. And my mom walked over, and she goes, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden, his swimming suit popped up to the top. Oh. And so my mom hands me my kids, and I looked down at my husband, and I screamed as loud as I could, and I said, go find my dad. Go find my dad. And I turned around and I looked at this family. I served a mission Spanish speaking in California, so I wasn't great at speaking Spanish. But now at this point, I'm the only one that speaks Spanish in a foreign country, in a rural area where people don't even speak Spanish. But I turned back to this family and I look at them and I'm like, I looked at the man and I said, you need to go help my husband. You gotta go find my dad. And I grabbed my girls and I handed them to the women and I said, I need you to watch my kids. And I ran down to the bottom where my mom was standing at the top. And I see my husband pulling in my dad from the water. At that point, my mom yelled down to my husband, who he knew what to do anyways, and my husband said he doesn't have a heartbeat, as he pulled him up onto the rock. And my mom said, start compressions, and my husband started doing compressions. So I ran back over to my boys, who were 5 and 4. And I looked at my oldest and I said, Benson, we have to start praying as hard as we can. So we knelt down. And Benson and I, my little 5-year-old, was like, please save my Pampa. Please save my Pampa. We prayed as hard as we could. And I heard my husband say he has a heartbeat. So he ran back over there. He was what they call agonal breathing, so he was barely breathing any air. 2 Latino men were down there trying to help my husband. They picked up my dad and had him sit up, and my husband's thinking maybe they know some sort of different way to help people because they're in the mountains, right? They maybe have something, which didn't help, and they lay my dad back down, and my husband looks at me and he said, we need to get him to a hospital right now. And I said, okay. He said, get the kids in the car. I run back over, right? I'm running back and forth. I grab my kids. I start walking them to the car, which is about half a mile away. And a lady is on the trail. She said, are you okay? And I said, oh my gosh, you speak English. Do you speak Spanish? She goes, yes, I'm a nurse from Spain. And I was like, oh my gosh, can you please call out my husband? He's a nurse, he needs help. I don't speak Spanish, and I need help communicating. At that exact moment, she goes down and helps. I get my kids, bring them to the car. As I walked back, I remember thinking, I don't know what power I hold. I don't know what I can do. So I knelt down and I just said to Heavenly Father, by whatever power I hold, I don't know what power I hold or what I can do, but I bless my dad. I'm blessed that he's going to be okay. And I bless my husband that he can help my dad. I promised everything at that point. God, I will never leave you. I have to see this happen. I don't know what I'm going to do. He has to live. I got back over there. They had grabbed a board of some sort. He's 15 feet down on this ledge. They get him up on one board and we have to carry him up. There's about now 6 of us that are carrying him to the car. My mom, my sweet mom, sat by his head and just named off all the grandkids. Named off missionaries. His kids. Kevin, you need to live for them. You need to keep breathing. I put too much pressure on my husband. We joke about it, but every chance I could, I would look at my husband and be like, you have to save my dad. Every time in between I was saying prayers, I would look down at him and I would scream at him, save my dad. This is on you. Save my dad. We get to the parking lot and they go to put my dad in the car with my kids. And my husband's like, oh no, we're not putting him in the car with my kids.
How traumatizing.
He's not even breathing. And at that exact moment, a truck pulls up. And we look at him and we say, can we put him in the back of your truck? And they're like, put him in. So the sweet nurse from Spain, my mom and my dad and my husband get in the back of this truck. And we start going to the closest pueblo, which is about 25 minutes down the street in this random little town, right? This little pueblo of people that I've probably never even seen Americans before. And we beeline it. The whole time we're driving, I'm thinking they're gonna die because this truck is like going through the mountain, and I'm following behind trying to keep composure for my kids. I had my face in my coat or my shirt like this because I was sobbing so hysterically, and I had my little kids in the car. We finally pull up to this. Oh, my dad did stop breathing in the back of the truck, and my husband had to do like jaw holds on him while my mom's still talking to him. And we pulled up to the hospital and got him into the hospital. This hospital is not a normal hospital. Like, think of going back to like the 30s, 40s hospital. Like, my dad needed oxygen, and they brought in like a 7-foot oxygen tank that that they've just like had there for however long. The second though they brought that in and put in the oxygen, his eyes opened up. And we were like, oh my gosh, he's here. And so we started, and then he started throwing up. And we're like, yes, this is awesome. Get all that water out of you. But then we started talking to him like, where do you know where you are? Do you know who you are? And everything he said was just very, very slurred. Like, nothing he said was really making sense. At that point, we knew we needed to get him to the nearest hospital, and a big hospital, because this one was not. But now the nurse has gone back with her family up to that place, and now I'm the only one speaking Spanish. I knew I had to get a hold of some of the missionaries. I knew I had to. And it was on me to figure out how to get a hold of the missionaries, also to communicate with everybody in Spanish. My husband's job was to not let anything happen to him and to help the nurses. Because when we brought him to that first hospital, they were trying to like put in vein. They wanted to give him fluids, and they were trying to go in all of these like weird things. Like, my husband's like, no, give it to me. We're going right in here. We're going to get him fluids. That first hospital, I had to run to a gas station up the street to try to get a hold of a phone so I could call the APs to have them meet me at this hospital, because I can't communicate, right? I'm like, I know Spanish, but I don't know Spanish, and they're asking me details about his health, and I don't know. Or even at this first hospital, they don't have all the equipment. So I had to run across the street to the store to buy pads to put under him. Like, just little things that you don't realize you would need to have, right? Yeah. We decide we're going to put him in an ambulance and drive the three and a half hours back to where we're staying in San Chris. He's there, but we're thinking maybe he has brain damage, or like he's going to be handicapped because he's not really communicating very well. I always joke, he's probably going to be mad about this joke, but I always joke because I'm like trying to lighten the mood with my mom in the car, because now we have to get in the ambulance. My mom and I have to follow the ambulance, and I was trying to joke with her. I'm like, I don't know what's worse, like seeing dad dead or seeing dad naked. Like, both were pretty traumatizing. We're trying to like lighten the mood. We're trying to like,
which is very much your personality.
I'm like, I don't know, Mom. Like, that was pretty intense, But that's where we were, and we have to drive now 3.5 hours to go to the main hospital. And my husband, my sweet, amazing husband, before they got into the ambulance, I looked at him and I was like, he is on you. Like, this is all on you. So if he starts coding in the ambulance, you're saving him. The doctor and the nurse that went into the ambulance with them, my husband was like, okay, so if he codes, like, what do we have? And they're like, Band-Aids. Oh. He's like, do we have like an oxygen? Like, can we tell, like, do we have like something, the oximeter, whatever we can put on his finger? And they grab my dad's finger and they're like, oh, it looks good.
Oh boy.
My husband's like,
makes you so grateful that we have real hospitals nearby.
Real, right? So we get in the car, we just start the voyage, and we're driving, and halfway through, the ambulance pulls over, and we're like, oh my gosh, something bad is happening. The doctor, and
quick question. So at this point, he's alive, but he's just slurring, and you don't know if he's brain damage.
Now he's slowly starting to talk to my husband, and my husband through the window is like,
oh, good, good.
We're like, okay, he's slowly coming back.
But then they pull over.
But then they pull over, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? The doctor and the nurse didn't want to sit in the back with my husband anymore. They're like, we're going to sit in the front of the ambulance. We're like, Okay, awesome. So they like go back, they get in the front of the ambulance. Now it's just my husband and my dad and now my dad's like kind of talking. Like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. I'm in so much pain because he just had compressions, you know.
Yeah.
My husband just
May have broken a rib or something,
everything,
yeah.
right? But then we just have to drive. And we finally get to the hospital after a long, long drive. And we get out. It's like, I've never seen a hospital like this. We pulled up at night. They don't allow families in the hospital, so all the families camp outside. The doors are guarded with like guys, like military guns, and we pull up and we have to get out. They get my dad out, and my dad's like, I'm in so much pain. I'm in so much pain. I need something for this pain. And they're like, well, we can't give you anything until we do scans to see like if there's any brain damage or if you have water still in your lungs or what we need to do. And we're like, okay, let's do it. And they're like, oh, we don't have those here. So you're going to need to get back in the hospital or in the ambulance and go to the like scanning place or whatever, like another hospital that does all the scans down the street. And we're like, okay, let's go. We get back in the car. We drive down to the next one. At this point, I'm like, I need to get a hold of somebody. Like, I have to have help communicating. I got a hold of a couple members that were in the area that were part of the branch presidency, I guess, in the area. And you would have just bawled your eyes out as they walked in and loved on my dad as he's about to get a scan done. One cute guy noticed that my dad didn't have socks on, and he just starts taking off his shoes, taking off his socks, putting his socks on my dad. Presidente, estamos aquí. We're here. We got you taken care of.
That is why I love the Hispanic people.
They dropped everything, and they didn't leave. They helped with everything. They were able to do the scans. We got him blessings. We did everything we needed to do. I took my kids back to the hotel, had somebody sit there with my kids. We went back to the hospital. All the scans came back and everything was perfectly clear. Everything.
Such a miracle.
Nothing was wrong. His cartilage was all destroyed from my husband doing really good compressions. We went and stayed at another hospital. He had to stay overnight, and the next day he walked out. Perfectly fine.
Wow.
What I got from that, though, was that everything had to be timed perfectly for the lady to be there, for the truck to be there, for the family to be there. That every stop mattered. Every person we talked to mattered throughout the entire day for it to be a complete blessing, because if one thing would have been off, everything else wouldn't have worked. Just one little thing. But I promised God at that moment that I would never doubt. There was too many things that were so perfectly lined up that I will never be able to doubt the existence of a God and a Heavenly Father who loves me, but also knows me and trusts me to make the right choices.
And he's there.
And he's there.
All along the way.
The whole entire way.
I've said this before, and I think this applies perfectly to your story too, is that sometimes we go through these really traumatic, super difficult, challenging times that you almost want to ask, why me? But I feel like we go through those so that he can show us a miracle.
Totally.
Otherwise, if we just had everything easy day to day, we'd forget about him because it's like, well, life is easy, but sometimes we go through these super difficult things so that we can have these, come to Jesus moments where it's like, okay, this is real. Yeah. There's no way that's just a coincidence that she shows up as you're walking down that trail. And
there's no way. And I had a really hard few years after that, but I was able to go back and lean on that experience, which was interesting because I feel like if I would have gone through experiences without having that, I'd be like, man, this is hard. Does God love me?
Yeah.
Is God real? But because I had that experience, I could lean back on it. And my boys, they'll bring it up sometimes in a Pampa, like, you're going on vacation, don't jump in any water.
They're traumatized.
Or remember that one time you jumped in that water and my dad had to
He's like, no, I don't remember. Remind me.
But I don't know, it completely changed all of our lives drastically. completely. My husband's life, my mom's, my dad, obviously. And when we talk about our experience and we share the story with people, it's a tangible thing. It's a real thing that.
Oh, I feel it.
Deny.
And this is the first time I'm hearing the full story, and it's like, yeah, it's palpable. You can just feel that this is such a miracle. Are your parents back in the States now?
Yeah, so my parents got back a few years ago, and luckily they've been living with me for the last year and a half, and
how fun.
Just creating more memories.
And he's doing well health-wise and everything?
Oh yeah, everything's been awesome. Like, you would never know that he drowned and had to be brought back to life. And the crazy thing too is sometimes I feel like the adversary's a little bit out there to get us, right?
Yeah.
And that week in their mission, that weekend, the next day when he walked out of the hospital was, if I'm correct, was one of their highest baptizing days of their mission. Which, I mean, if he would have passed away, I feel like that would have had a really big impact on that day and the missionaries. But because he lived, we actually went to some of the baptisms and were able to be there. And
did all the missionaries know what had happened?
Some of them did, because I did have to call the ones that were in that area and get some help.
Wow.
And now we're close with a bunch of them. But
wow.
Yeah.
What an incredible story. No wonder that's so life-changing.
Yeah. It's
one thing to be in the States and hear about, oh, your dad drowned, and then you're like, I'm so glad you're okay. But to actually like see that and have your children see that, that's so life-changing, and that is a miracle. Yeah. I'm so glad he's okay.
Me too. Thank goodness, right? Because when I think back, if anything would have changed, I don't even know what we would have done. I honestly, I look back and I'm like, we would have had to transport his. I honestly, I have no idea what we would have done. Thank goodness my husband is very, very good at his job.
Yeah.
And he had that years of experience with doing what he was doing, and I'm just grateful for his medical knowledge and God and stepping in and
miracles.
Yeah.
One last question. So what do we think happened? Did he hit a rock or something?
No, he went under, and he was in the current. So he was flipping. He couldn't get out, and my husband saw his finger pop up like at the top of the water and went in there. And when he said he pulled my dad out, he felt like he was like in the current.
Oh, wow. So your husband could have drowned too.
Oh, 1,000%. Remember how he almost jumped in with my daughter right before?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So good thing, like, not good thing, but good thing he didn't go first and with my child. But I don't know if my dad would have known exactly what to do compression wise for my husband. There's just a lot, like.
Wow.
But yeah, my husband pulled him out. He was only underwater for about 45 seconds before my husband was able to like get him out and start his heart again. But because he went under, my dad said he held his breath. He knew that he needed to hold his breath and not let any water get into his lungs. So when he held his breath, which made no oxygen go to his brain, which stopped his heart. But it was the best because then he had no water in his lungs. Wow. So he was able to keep his mouth closed, and then compression save your life. So that's why you learn CPR, right?
Yeah. Well, miracles do happen. Yeah. And thank you so much for being so willing to share such a vulnerable story and
of course.
And such a private story. And tell your dad thank you too for being willing to share that. And thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Of course.